You ever notice how life has this funny way of warning you before it hits you? Not with lightning, not with thunder, no. It whispers. It gives you silence right before the storm, peace so thick you almost believe you're safe. And that's the trick, isn't it? The calm makes you careless. You start thinking you've made it through the worst. You start smiling again, breathing again. You start to think the darkness is done with you. But then, something starts shifting in the air. The kind of shift you can't see, but you feel it crawling across your skin. Like the world's holding its breath, waiting to see how much more you can take. Everyone's afraid of breaking. They treat it like the end of the story, like the credits start rolling the moment things fall apart. But that's the lie, isn't it? The beautiful little illusion that keeps people chained to comfort. Breaking isn't destruction, it's transformation, wearing a cruel mask. It's not the end, it's the surgery before the rebirth. But people don't like surgery, they like pretending they're fine. They'll keep patching the cracks, keep smiling through the pain, just so they don't have to admit something inside them is rotting. Because once you admit that, you have to do something about it. And doing something means bleeding for it. You see, everything in this world that grows has to break first. Seeds split open before they bloom. Bones crack before they heal stronger. Hearts shatter before they learn to love differently. But humans want to grow without pain, change without chaos, evolve without loss. They want transformation that doesn't demand a sacrifice. The problem is, life doesn't trade like that. Life takes before it gives. It breaks before it builds. And when that moment comes, when everything you thought was solid starts collapsing, you start to understand what you were made of all along. Not the version you post, not the smile you wear for people who don't even notice, but the real thing underneath. The raw, shaking, ugly truth of you. Breaking strips away the lies. That's what makes it so terrifying. Because when the cracks appear, you can't pretend anymore. You can't blame luck or timing or anyone else. You have to look at yourself and see the truth that's been hiding beneath your armor. And that truth, it's not always pretty. It shows you the fear you ignored, the weakness you denied, the pain you buried so deep you forgot it existed. Breaking doesn't destroy you. It introduces you to yourself. The parts you've neglected, the shadows you refuse to face. It forces you to meet the version of you that's been quietly waiting beneath all the pretending. You'll scream, of course. You'll think it's unfair. You'll curse everything and everyone. That's what people do when the illusion burns, because they thought they were safe in their little worlds, built of convenience and denial. But safety is just a story you tell yourself to avoid seeing how fragile you really are. The truth is, you were always one blow away from collapse. And that blow, whether it comes through betrayal, loss, failure, or silence, doesn't arrive to ruin you. It arrives to reveal you. Because the you that survives the breaking isn't the same one who started. Something changes, something permanent. You stop needing validation. You stop begging to be seen. You stop chasing the idea of control, and you start learning to exist in chaos without losing yourself. Breaking bends you, but it also teaches you to move differently. It forces you to rebuild with intention. When the pieces of your life hit the floor, you get to decide which ones to pick back up. You realize some parts weren't worth keeping. Some dreams were too small. Some people were never really with you. They were just comfortable while you were whole. When you break, you see everything clearly for the first time. And clarity hurts, but it also heals. Because it gives you the freedom to start again without pretending, without masks, without apologies. just the truth. You'll notice something strange too. After the breaking, things that used to matter don't anymore. The noise fades, the opinions, the pressure, the expectations, they all shrink. You stop chasing perfection because you finally understand it doesn't exist. You start chasing peace instead, real peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone's approval or circumstances lining up. Because after you've been broken, you stop living for survival. You start living for purpose. And purpose doesn't come from comfort. It comes from collapse. It comes from standing in the ashes and realizing you're still breathing, still capable, still alive. That's when transformation begins. Breaking is nature's way of rewriting you. You thought you were finished, but you were only a draft. Every crack, every scar, every bruise is just life carving out the version of you that can handle what's next. The world doesn't reward those who stay untouched. It crowns those who rise from their own ruins. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe the breaking isn't punishment. Maybe it's the invitation. Because something has to die before something greater can live. Pain is the language of awakening, though no one wants to admit it. Everyone craves comfort, ease, pleasure, but those things never teach you anything real. Pain does. Pain is the teacher no one asks for, but everyone meets. It's the moment life stops speaking in whispers and starts screaming the truth in your face. You don't forget pain. It carves itself into your memory, into your body, into your decisions. And that's the point. Pain changes the way you see everything. It makes you look at yourself, not the version you've dressed up for the world, but the one trembling underneath. You can fake a smile, fake confidence, fake peace, but pain rips the mask clean off. You think you're awake, but you're not. You're scrolling, working, laughing, existing, not living. Pain is what shakes you from that trance. It grabs you by the throat and says, look. And when you look, really look, you realize how much of your life was built on sleepwalking, on routines that numbed you, on people who drained you, on dreams that were never yours to begin with. Pain wakes you up from the illusion of control. It reminds you that everything can change, and that nothing you hold is guaranteed to stay. It's cruel, but it's honest. And honesty, especially the kind that hurts, is the only thing that can make you alive again. The strange thing about pain is that it doesn't come when you're ready. It comes when you're comfortable. It sneaks in when you start thinking you've got things figured out. And it doesn't knock, it kicks the door open, because comfort is the enemy of growth. You stop questioning, you stop feeling, you stop pushing forward. So pain comes as a wake-up call, a violent, uninvited reminder that there's still more for you to become. But here's the catch. Most people don't listen. They drown it out. They run from it. They cover it with distractions, with noise, with fake happiness. And the more they run, the louder it gets. Because pain doesn't go away. When ignored, it multiplies. People like to say time heals all wounds. That's a lie told by those who never face their pain head on. Time doesn't heal. Awareness does. Reflection does. The decision to face what broke you does. Because pain is a messenger, not a punishment. It shows up with lessons written in blood and silence. It tells you what you need to release, what you need to change, what you need to become. But you can't hear that message if you're too busy pretending you're fine. The bravest thing you can do is sit with it. Listen to it. Let it show you the parts of yourself you've been afraid to meet. The irony is, pain doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. You don't know who you are until you've suffered. You don't know your strength until it's tested. You don't know your faith until it's shaken. Pain strips away the lies you told yourself about what you could handle, what you needed, who you were. It pushes you to the edge of everything you thought you knew and dares you to jump anyway. And when you do, when you stop fighting it and start learning from it, that's when awakening begins. That's when you start seeing the patterns, the illusions, the fake comfort you built to keep yourself safe from truth. Pain has this strange way of making you grateful later. Not at first. At first it feels unbearable, unfair, endless. But then one day, you realize it made you sharper. It made you quieter. It made you see through things that used to fool you. The same pain that almost killed you becomes the reason you can finally live differently. You start to see that every wound was a doorway, not a grave. Every heartbreak was a filter. Every loss was direction disguised as chaos. Pain rewired your mind to spot what's real, to feel what's real. And that's awakening the ability to live with your eyes open in a world built on lies. But awakening doesn't come cheap. It demands everything. It asks you to trade comfort for truth, illusion for clarity, safety for freedom. Most people won't pay that price. They'll cling to their cages because they're familiar. But if you ever choose to listen to pain instead of running from it, it will teach you more than any success, any pleasure, any victory ever could. It will teach you how to see, how to breathe through the fire instead of escaping it, how to stand in the middle of chaos and feel peace anyway. That's what pain does. It strips you bare until all that's left is awareness, sharp, uncomfortable, beautiful awareness. Comfort hides weakness. Chaos reveals strength. It's always been that way. People love to think they're strong when everything's calm, when their plans go right, when the world behaves the way they expect it to. But that's not strength. That's convenience. Real strength doesn't show up when life is kind. It comes crawling out when everything collapses. It's buried deep inside the parts of you that haven't been tested yet, waiting for chaos to come knocking. And chaos always comes. It doesn't care about your timing, your peace, your plans. It comes to see what you're made of. And that's when you find out if the version of you you've been pretending to be can actually survive the fire. Comfort fools you. It wraps itself around you like a warm blanket and whispers that you're safe, that you're capable, that you're ready. But comfort is a liar. It hides your fragility under a soft illusion. It gives you confidence built on stillness, not on struggle. And when the chaos arrives, that false confidence cracks. You see it in people who've never been hurt, never failed, never faced rejection. They speak loudly until life speaks back. Then their voices shake. Their plans crumble. Their masks fall off. Because comfort didn't prepare them, it protected them. It made them soft in places they should have been steel. Chaos doesn't ask if you're ready. It throws you into the deep end and waits to see if you'll sink or swim. It strips away your excuses, your pride, your habits, and leaves you with raw instinct. And that's where strength lives, in instinct. In the split-second decisions you make when everything familiar disappears. In the breath you take when you're surrounded by fear, but you move anyway. Chaos doesn't care about what you say you believe. It exposes what you actually believe. You can't fake resilience in the middle of a storm. You either bend or you break. And bending isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The tree that refuses to move in the wind is the first to snap. Everyone says they want peace, but they forget what peace costs. You can't have true peace without first surviving chaos, because peace that hasn't been tested isn't peace, it's ignorance. Chaos is what builds the kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen or proven. The kind of strength that doesn't panic when everything falls apart because it's been there before. You can't develop that in a world of comfort. Comfort gives you ease, but chaos gives you depth. It digs into your soul and pulls out everything you didn't know was there. It shows you your limits, and then it laughs as it pushes you past them. That's where transformation lives, not in safety, but in surrender. When chaos hits, most people pray for escape. But the truth is, chaos is the only thing that ever tells the truth. It doesn't lie to you, it doesn't flatter you. It shows you what you depend on, who you really are, what you can actually endure. It reveals the cracks in your foundation, and while it hurts to see them, it's the only way to fix them. Comfort would have let you stay fragile forever. Chaos doesn't. It doesn't tolerate weakness, hiding behind routine. It pulls you apart so you can rebuild stronger. The thing about strength is, it doesn't feel like strength when it's growing. It feels like breaking. It feels like confusion. It feels like every part of you is screaming to stop. That's why people mistake strength for suffering. But that suffering, that shaking, that burning is the process. It's you being remade from the inside out. Chaos is the sculptor and pain is the chisel. Every hit, every crack, every moment you think you can't go on is carving you into something more real, more grounded, more unshakable. And when it's all over, when the dust finally settles, you'll notice something. The things that used to scare you don't anymore. The people who used to control you can't. The uncertainty that once paralyzed you becomes fuel. You move differently. You speak differently. You carry silence like a weapon. That's the mark of someone who's been through chaos and didn't run. Someone who stood there, shaking, but didn't fall. Because strength isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep walking through it. Comfort will tell you it's protecting you, but it's only keeping you from discovering yourself. Chaos is the mirror that shows you who you are without filters, without pretense. The reflection might terrify you at first, but eventually, you'll recognize it. You'll realize that the only way to know your own power is to let the world try to take it away and fail. The storm doesn't come to punish, it comes to purify. That's the part no one understands until it's too late. They see destruction, they see loss, they see chaos and think, asterisk, why me? Asterisk. But storms don't pick favorites. They come for anything that's built on weakness, anything that's standing on shaky ground. The storm isn't your enemy, it's the truth in motion. It doesn't hate you, it's cleansing you, stripping away everything you built that wasn't real, everything you clung to just to avoid being honest with yourself. Because the truth is, we hold on to too much. People, ideas, routines, illusions. And sometimes, life has to send the storm to take it all down, because you wouldn't let go yourself. You ever notice how calm everything feels right before it all falls apart? That eerie stillness, that false peace, that's not coincidence, that's warning. That's the storm, giving you one last chance to wake up before it breaks everything you refuse to change. People think storms ruin their lives, but maybe the ruin was already there, buried under fake smiles and forced normalcy. The storm just brings it to the surface. You call it a disaster. The universe calls it a detox. You see, the storm doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your alignment. If something in your life doesn't belong anymore, if it's blocking your growth, draining your purpose, poisoning your peace, the storm will remove it. You won't understand it while it's happening, because all you'll see is loss. You'll think everything's being taken from you, but what's really happening is subtraction with purpose. The storm isn't there to punish you. It's trying to save you from the things that were quietly destroying you. But people rarely see it that way. They cry over what's gone, instead of realizing what's being made possible in the space it left behind. And it hurts. Of course it hurts. Cleansing always hurts. The storm doesn't ask for your permission before it tears through your world. It just arrives, uninvited, and starts taking what can't survive where you're going next. That's the thing about purification. It's not gentle. It doesn't whisper. It screams. It tears. It forces you to face the wreckage of your own resistance. Because deep down, you knew some of it needed to go. You just didn't have the courage to let it go yourself. So the storm did what you wouldn't. The irony is that when the storm hits, we cling to the very things that are meant to be carried away. We fight the current, grabbing at broken pieces, begging them to stay. We think the storm is cruel because it doesn't let us keep what feels safe. But safety and stagnation look very similar when you're afraid to grow. The storm knows that. It knows you can't move forward with dead weight tied around your soul. So it rips it away, even when you scream, even when you bleed. Because the storm's job isn't to comfort you, it's to cleanse you. And when it's over, when the wind stops howling and the dust begins to settle, you start to see differently. The things that fell apart weren't meant to last. The people who left weren't meant to stay. The plans that failed weren't meant to succeed. You realize that everything that was stripped away was only hiding what you were supposed to find. The storm wasn't there to punish you. It was revealing what was true beneath all the pretending. It was washing away the versions of you that were built from fear, expectation, and survival. It was leaving behind something cleaner, something real. But here's the part most people miss. The purification doesn't just happen outside you. It happens in times you. The storm isn't just weather, it's reflection. It shakes your spirit, floods your emotions, forces you to confront what you've been avoiding. It shows you what you really believe when everything stable disappears. Do you trust yourself or only your comfort? Do you have faith in what you can't see or only what you can control? The storm answers those questions for you. It breaks your illusions until the only thing left standing is your truth. And truth doesn't need walls to protect it. The beauty of it all is that once the storm is gone, you realize it, left you lighter, stronger, cleaner. The pieces that survived weren't damaged, they were refined. The storm burned away everything fake and left behind the core of who you actually are. And that's how you know it wasn't punishment. Punishment leaves you empty. Purification leaves you clear. The difference is in what remains when it's done. What breaks you also rebuilds you stronger. It sounds poetic until it happens. Until you're the one sitting in the dark, surrounded by the pieces of a life that doesn't fit anymore. Everyone loves the idea of strength, but no one talks about how it's made. It's not born from comfort or success or applause. It's forged in the kind of pain that makes you question everything. The kind that takes what you thought was solid and grinds it into dust. The kind that doesn't ask for your permission before it teaches you who you really are. That's where strength is born, not in victory, but in recovery. You think you're unbreakable, and then life proves otherwise. It takes something from you, someone, a dream, a sense of direction, and suddenly the ground you trusted is gone. You fall, you fight, you deny it. You tell yourself you're fine, but you're not. And that's the moment the rebuilding begins. Not when you pretend it doesn't hurt, but when you finally admit that it does. Because truth is the first brick in rebuilding. As long as you lie to yourself, you're building on sand. But once you face it, really face it, that's when something starts to shift. The breaking isn't a curse. It's the only way life can rearrange you. You can't build something new with old materials. You can't reach higher with the same structure that kept you trapped. The breaking tears down what's no longer working, and that hurts because we grow attached to our own cages. We decorate them, call them home, convince ourselves they're safe. But the truth is, sometimes life has to break you free, because you would never leave on your own. And when that happens, when everything falls apart, you start to see that what's breaking isn't destroying you, it's carving room for the next version of you to exist. At first, it feels like the end, like everything you've built was for nothing. But then, something strange happens. You start to breathe again, slowly, differently. The pain doesn't go away, but it starts to change shape. It becomes something else, a kind of fuel. You start to see patterns. You start to see how the things that broke you were actually making space for clarity. You realize that you had to lose the illusion of control to gain real power. And that's when you understand that strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about learning how to rebuild in the ruins without losing yourself. The rebuilding is quiet. It's not glamorous. No one claps for you when you're putting the pieces back together. People move on. They forget. But you keep going piece by piece, heartbeat by heartbeat. And that's what makes you different. That's where strength begins to take form, not in the noise, but in the silence after. Every scar, every lesson, every tear becomes part of the new foundation. It's not pretty, but it's real. You don't rebuild the same. You rebuild wiser. You rebuild with boundaries. You rebuild with eyes that see through what once fooled you. And one day, you look back at the person you were before it all broke, and you don't even recognize them. You realize they were fragile, dependent, afraid. You realize you needed to be broken to understand what wholeness even meant, because wholeness isn't perfection, it's acceptance. It's knowing what hurt you and loving yourself through it anyway. The version of you that rises after the breaking is stronger not because they avoided pain, but because they learned to use it. Pain becomes instruction, loss becomes direction, and every scar becomes proof that you survived something that once tried to end you. The rebuilding doesn't erase the pain, it redefines it. The things that once haunted you start to guide you. The memories that used to burn start to teach. You begin to understand that what felt like destruction was really construction in disguise. You were being rebuilt into someone who could hold more, see more, endure more. You stop asking, why me? And start realizing, because me. Because you were chosen to carry something heavier, to walk through something darker, to come out with wisdom others can't understand. And maybe that's what strength really is, not the ability to avoid breaking, but the courage to let it happen and still rise after. To trust that every fall is followed by a rebuilding. To know that the hands that broke you were also shaping you. That every time you thought it was over, it was actually the beginning of something truer. The breaking wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And the version of you that's being rebuilt, they're not weaker for the cracks. They're stronger because of them. When everything starts to fall apart, people panic. They run, they hide, they beg for explanations. They say things like, why is this happening to me? As if the universe owes them a polite warning before it rearranges their life. But it doesn't. It just happens. Quietly at first, then all at once. And suddenly, you realize that nothing is in your control. That's the part that really breaks people, the realization that control was an illusion all along. You thought you were steering the wheel, but the truth is, the road was deciding where you'd end up. And when that road crumbles beneath you, all your pretty plans start to look like jokes written by a child. That's when you see the truth. The fall was never your failure. It was your awakening. You see, when you're stripped of everything, when the floor is gone and there's nowhere left to stand, that's when the real version of you starts to crawl out. Not the one that smiles for pictures, not the one that pretends everything's fine, the raw one. The one that doesn't need approval anymore because the world's laughter has already burned through you. That version doesn't chase validation, it feeds on silence. It learns to breathe in the chaos, to find rhythm in the ruins. That's where you begin to understand what kind of creature you really are. Not fragile, not harmless. You were just too comfortable to notice the strength buried under all that pretending. And when the pain doesn't go away, when it lingers, when it breathes with you, that's when you realize it's not your enemy. It's your teacher. It whispers lessons that comfort never could. It shows you what matters, what doesn't, who stays, who runs. Pain cuts deep, but that's the point. It carves space for depth. You start to see how shallow you once were, how easily distracted by noise, an illusion. Pain digs until you can't ignore what's real anymore. And what's real is never pretty, never easy. It's messy, it's cold, it's honest. But it's the only place where transformation lives. People think breaking is about losing something, but it's more like shedding. The false layers peel off one by one, the fake smiles, the need to impress, the fragile ego. You lose pieces of yourself you thought were essential, and it terrifies you. But as the dust settles, you begin to see what's left. Something solid. Something that doesn't crumble when life screams in your face. You realize that maybe the breaking wasn't meant to destroy you, but to reveal you. You were never meant to stay comfortable. You were meant to evolve. And here's the irony. The thing that breaks you is also the thing that saves you. The betrayal that shattered your trust taught you to see people's true colors. The failure that humiliated you taught you humility and hunger. The loss that hollowed you out made room for something greater. You start to understand that life doesn't destroy, it refines. It's a sculptor, and you're the stone. Every hit, every crack, every fall is shaping something precise, something dangerous, something powerful. But not everyone survives the process. Some people fight it. They cling to their old selves, their comfort zones, their illusions. They scream, "This isn't fair," and they spend the rest of their lives trying to rebuild a world that's already gone. But you start to listen. You start to lean into the pain instead of resisting it. You start to see that the only way out is through. And once you stop running, once you let the storm hit you full force, you begin to feel something strange, peace. Not the gentle kind, the earned kind. The kind that comes after you've lost everything you thought mattered and realized you can still breathe without it. And in that silence, something awakens inside you. You stop being afraid of endings because you understand now that they're not really endings. They're transitions. You stop being afraid of people leaving because you realize no one truly leaves. They just return to where they belong in your story. You stop being afraid of pain because you've learned it's a doorway. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every dark night, they all lead you somewhere if you're brave enough to keep walking. Then the world starts to test you again. The same patterns, the same traps, the same chaos. But this time, You don't flinch. You've been here before. You've already faced worse. You don't panic when doors close, because you know what closed doors really mean now. You know that behind every loss is protection. Behind every silence is guidance. You stop trying to force what's fading because you finally understand that everything that's meant to stay will fight to, and everything that's meant to go will crumble. No matter how tight you hold it. And that's when you realize maybe being broken wasn't the curse you thought it was. Maybe it was mercy. Maybe it was life's brutal way of showing you what you couldn't see any other way. Maybe the pain that tore you apart was the same hand that was trying to set you free.